Ask the Mayor on KWBE is our Thursday morning program with Mayor Stan Wirth as we bring in Stan again today. And we start out the day on congratulations for Beatrice High School basketball teams. They both made it to state, Lady
Absolutely.
Orange and the boys.
Yeah.
And it didn't turn out the way you want it to, but still,
But
you got to be pretty good to get there.
But they got to state, and there's a lot of teams that didn't get to state.
Yeah.
You certainly want to congratulate Coach Ribble and Coach Weeks for their leadership of the teams that made it to state this year. I think they did an outstanding job again, and the kids played their hearts out, but there was a lid on the basket on numerous occasions, and it just didn't work out for them. But certainly want to congratulate them for getting to the point where they did.
Any of those teams that make it to the semifinals, they're all good teams, so you just really never know what's going to happen. You can run into a buzzsaw, or you can pull an upset in either way. So, and we've been on both sides of that too.
We have, and the coaching on both sides with Ron Colley and also with Adam Central was outstanding, and they knew they did their homework. The coaches I'm talking about did their homework and decided to press when they needed to, and put up a strong defense when they needed to, and a run and gun offense when they needed to. So it was fun to watch.
It was. Well, winter arrived back again overnight, but
Merry Christmas.
Not quite as really. Happy holidays. not as much as thought though. 3 to 5 inches was the prediction. About an inch. Did see city crews out early today, though, doing their thing. So
everything's cleaned up pretty well. The side streets a little bit, but look, it's a light snow. It's a real fluffy snow, so people can navigate the streets pretty easily. I know that city crews are salting intersections so that people have a tendency to be able to stop instead of slide through.
Yeah, it's all going to be gone pretty quickly because we're seeing 60s and 70s
60s and 70s next week. I like that.
This will be a distant memory shortly here.
Right.
So, and it really, we keep talking about we're getting pretty close to the end of the winter season. Will be coming up pretty soon. You can always get that late spring or late winter storm, but we haven't had a lot of major snowfall this year.
And we're kind of on the downhill slide, and we set the clocks back on Sunday or Saturday night, and we're spring ahead.
We're spring ahead.
Spring ahead.
That's right. Yeah. You're going to mess people up here. They'll be 2 hours behind.
Mess myself up.
What about road material, salt, sand? I'd imagine
got plenty.
It's going to be there.
Yeah.
You're going to have plenty of it.
We won't have to lay any in come this next fall. I think we've got plenty to satisfy what we need to do going into the fall or going into the next year.
Food truck ordinance, it was passed by the city council on Monday night. I know that's been kind of a little bit of a long process working through that, getting public input, kind of narrowing down the requirements
the scope
on
of
it. What was your thought of the final product?
I think it's fine. We took criticism over regulating food trucks when we don't have any regulations in place today at all. Now this new ordinance only affects food trucks on public property, and they have to fall within guidelines of a 2,000 square foot area where this food truck would set, only because of safety reasons. Certainly want off-street parking if at all possible, and there's a slight fee that would be paid just for some administrative costs, just recouping some of those administrative costs. But again, it is a kind of a watered-down version, and we absolutely had no public input on Monday night.
Before you had set the fees, you did some kind of comparisons with other towns as
Correct.
far as how do they compare the $25 and the $10?
Much cheaper than the other communities. Matter of fact, I think we are at the bottom of the list as far as fees are concerned. So again, inexpensive. I think there is a $10 fee for a weekly permit, $25 fee for an annual permit. So inexpensive.
Did you get any feedback after the council meeting on Monday from businesses or food truck operators on it? Or?
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
just crickets.
Move on to the next issue, I guess. Yeah, okay. One thing you wanted to spend a little bit of time on today, and I did not see the letter itself until here just recently, but there was a local letter to the editor regarding the city's garbage service and recycling, basically calling into question how the city handled that whole issue.
Right.
What do you want to say about that?
I do want to spend a little time on this because the information that was contained in the letter to the editor, and anybody's got their own opinion, but there was everything was false with the exception of one thing, and that we received, I think in April, one request for proposal to consider for a company to provide the garbage services for us. I normally don't or wouldn't comment on something like this, but all of a sudden public trust comes into play and transparency. And so I think it's necessary that we set the record straight from what the actual letter had indicated, and indicated that we may have utilized some of that information from that request for proposal to put our own program together. But we utilize a consulting firm, Van Tholen and Associates, to help us navigate through this process. And in April, again, we had an RFP sent out, and it was for a variety of different categories, whether it was once a week, twice a week, company-owned containers, private property owner containers, recycling. And because we only had one proposal to begin with, we decided it was necessary to go out again and see if there is more interest, and there was. We received 3 different requests for proposals at that time. Part of the criticism in that letter indicated that we are charging quite a bit more than what the low bid was, and that is absolutely incorrect. Waste Connections was one of the bidders that they actually bid everything with the exception of one of the items. And their price was almost $30 a month on the high end. On the low end, it was $24.35. Midwest Refuse only bid on 2 different items. Their high bid was $20.20, and low bid was $19.10. There was the third bid that came in, proposed a flat fee of $22.70, but they would not do any recycling. That brings into question another thing that indicated in that letter that we don't do recycling at all. We haul everything to the landfill. And that prompted some telephone calls that I received and some emails from some citizens that said, hey, we want to recycle, we want to do our part, but if you're just going to haul it to the landfill, we're really disappointed in that. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. We are hauling all of our recyclables to a company in Lincoln. Right now I can't remember the name of the company, but the only thing we don't haul there is glass. Glass, you have to have an inordinate amount of glass before somebody will come and pick it up. We then load it in their trucks, and they haul it off, and it's a loss leader. You don't make any money on it. So the glass does go into the landfills. The company that I'm thinking about that we haul our recyclables to on a weekly basis is First Star in Lincoln. And then the plastic and cardboard is baled and hauled to Lincoln every 3 weeks. So for someone to blatantly indicate that we don't recycle and that we're taking everything to the landfill is totally false. Another comment in there was that we are taking business away from another provider by hauling the garbage for for Wymore and Blue Springs. Again, incorrect, because Shelby Temps of Marysville, Kansas is actually servicing that area. Shelby Temps brings their garbage to our landfill. And I think another thing that's important to mention is that it indicated that we increased taxes because of the city actually providing this service. And that is absolutely incorrect. The bond is being retired from fees that we actually receive. So again, it is a bit fraught with innuendos. It's a situation where there's just half-truths. One of them is that there was a garbage company that actually closed because the city took it over. Well, the only garbage company that closed was Sanitary Garbage, the previous provider, who gave us about a year notice indicating that they wouldn't do this anymore and didn't want to bid on the contract. We are charging exactly what Sanitary Garbage was charging at $18. So if you look at the other bids that were out there, we are considerably lower than the rest of them. And we assumed contracts from other communities, and we had to honor those contracts, and they were at $17 a month. That will increase over time, but we had to honor those contracts. So yes, indeed, they are paying a little less than what Beatrice residents are paying. And I'm done.
You're done. Okay. I did want to ask you, though, when you first started going through this, knowing that you were going to have to come up with a new garbage hauling arrangement in some form or another, either privately or undertake it yourself, way back when you first started those discussions, was there any citizen input in the whole thing? Because garbage hauling is, it's a major part of the community. You're going to pay for it one way or another. But I don't really recall anybody coming in and saying, hey, we think you ought to do it this way or this way. You ought to consider this. You ought to consider that.
Good point. And no, there was not. I mean, we had public hearing after public hearing about this every step of the way. And we just didn't have that public input. And the council looked at the numbers, and we decided, since we own the landfill and we have land just to the southwest of the current landfill that was purchased, 15 years ago, that it was probably something that we easily could take over. Now, it wasn't as easy as that I just indicated. There was some issues with it. There's no doubt about it. Worked all those out. I think we're on a good path right now, and we hope that for the most part, the service is what we provide is adequate.
In 4 or 5 years down the road, I guess, as a city, if it started going south or it wasn't working out the way you wanted it to, you could always bid again if you wanted to.
We always could. And we have communities now coming to us wanting to know whether or not we'd be interested in supplying the service to them also. We have to take into consideration how far out we want to extend ourselves. The further out we go, obviously, the more costs you're going to have. But I think that there is a sentiment out there that we do a pretty good job.
It's kind of like a landfill, too. The more customers you have for that, the easier it is for you to finance the operation and make it work.
That is correct.
Yeah. 228-5924 if you have a question today for Mayor Stan Wirth on Ask the Mayor. Back on Ask the Mayor today with Mayor Stan Wirth, 402-228-5923. If you have a question or an issue you'd like to see discussed, affirmed your reappointment of Dave Eskra as chairperson of the Board of Public Works, Monday night's council meeting. He served on, I'm trying to remember how many years he's
long time on the Board of Public Works. He was chairman. Now I think it's maybe the third year that he's been chairman of the Board of Public Works. Does a nice job. Dave is... does his homework, very level-headed in the meetings, and asks all the right questions.
Yeah, he is running for council, so should he make that,
then there'll have to be another appointment.
Yeah, okay.
And then whomever the next mayor is would certainly yield to them to make that appointment.
I see. Okay. It's interesting. You don't see at Board of Public Works meetings. It's rare that you see any public participation in them, but yet that board oversees an enterprise that is millions of dollars.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And no, they are a recommending body. No, there are a few things that they can do administratively, but for the most part, everything that they do is recommended to the city council, and then there is public input at the city council meetings at that time. They meet at noon on every other Wednesday. And sometimes it's difficult for the public to make that, but you're right. It is a body that oversees an awful lot of our community and the integral parts of our community.
I probably put the jinx on somebody. I say hardly anybody ever attends those meetings, and now there'll be...
We've got seating.
There's plenty of empty chairs there,
That's
so
right.
if you want to, yeah. Monday night, also on the consent agenda of your council meeting, bid for a concrete project, parts of 4th and Lincoln, where you have that what is kind of an unofficial kind of bypass route through part of Nebraska, part of Beatrice for commuting traffic. I think the bid was close to $214,000 or somewhere around there. That's really kind of the major project.
That's going to be one of the major projects, mill and overlay project, but that actually is going to be pushed into 2023. That'll be a big project also. That goes from, I think, 11th and Monroe all the way to Lincoln Street. I think there's going to be 2 blocks knocked off of that going as you head south. But for the most part, I think that's now a 9-block area. But the 4th and Grant to Lincoln Street and Lincoln Street 4th to 5th is going to be done sometime this summer. And you're right, the bid was right at $214,000. It was awarded to Tiemann Construction. And so that program is going to be starting, and it's going to be in your neighborhood, so you're going to have to park someplace
somewhere else. I'm going to find other provisions there, but that's going to be concrete too, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, that's right.
Just a lot of traffic and wears better, and just as far as the street through there, I know it's packed in kind of a residential neighborhood, but are there changes such as the amount of right-of-way you need or things like that? Or
I don't think so, Doug. I've not seen the engineer specs on that, but I don't think that is going to happen.
It's a fairly wide street. Is that you got parking on some of it that sometimes squeezes people a little bit. But
I think there could be at the intersection some handicap accessible reconstruction that will have to be done. Even if they're there today, the specifications have changed on those. And so while you're doing the streets, you just redo those also.
Isn't that a requirement, too? Each time
you
rebuild a street, you have to put in those ADA ramps.
That is correct. Even if we do a large mill and overlay project, you have to do that.
And it's not inexpensive per intersection. I forget what the cost is, but it's
I think it's $4,000 an intersection.
Yeah. Okay.
And that might be on the light end.
Yeah. You have an upcoming open house on a big project that is yet to be decided how you'll approach it, the Lincoln Corridor project all the way on Lincoln Street from 5th, where this other project ends, to 22nd Street. You have intersections along there, a couple of one-ways that intersect with it. Have a little bit of a jog in one intersection, so there's a lot of things to consider there. How are you approaching it as far as the open house for the public showing up? It's not like you're giving a formal presentation or anything, or
I think the engineering company will have different diagrams, models of what they're looking at. There's going to be obviously several different choices. This meeting is going to be on March 21st from 4:30 to 6:30 at the Lincoln Elementary School gym. Again, no formal presentation planned, but citizens will have the opportunity to provide their input regarding current street conditions along the corridor and any kind of potential improvements that they deem necessary. They're going to look at the engineering company is looking at issues like pedestrian and bike traffic and the amount of right-of-way that is needed for the upgrades. So all of that will be in their preliminary presentations. There will be additional public meetings held as we go forward with this, but this will be the first on March 21st.
I wonder if anybody will bring up, because they usually do, speed limits, because I know Lincoln has different speed limits on some part. As you get closer to the elementary school, it's a 25 zone. And
otherwise, it's 35.
Yeah, 35 all the way, to 6th Street, if I remember right. But
well, if you look at the future and the possibility that Lincoln School may be eliminated and moved further east, that may or may not change things. You're still approaching a pretty busy intersection. How we actually configure that intersection is going to be part of the engineer's study, and hopefully they have that information also as an example of what could be done.
You've had quite a bit, some discussion on that 19th and Lincoln intersection before because of the school being there, but focus on the other one, the 6th and Lincoln one. I know your engineer is a little wary of how that's a little bit offset when, as you, let's say you're heading west at that location and you plan to go straight on Lincoln, you have to kind of move to the right.
It's a little confusing.
Is there an easy fix to that, or is that just kind of too crowded in that area?
I think they're talking about acquiring some additional right-of-way. I know that the bank is on one corner, whether or not they can squeeze a few feet out of that, and then Grant Jones has his office on the north side. Whether or not they are looking at maybe widening that area, and then where the sheriff's office is and the courthouse, whether or not they're going to widen that probably would be the easiest solution. But Doug, I'm not an engineer, and these guys are way smarter than I am.
Yeah. Well, and the structures that are there, you can't really easily just dig into somebody's property without, but maybe a little adjustment might solve the
That might solve the
problem.
problem, right.
Okay. For you, well, let's take another break here. We'll come back and talk about a couple issues here on Ask the Mayor, 228-5923 if you have a question today. Back on Ask the Mayor to finish up things today with Mayor Stan Wirth. Just one question regarding, we were talking about the new school site, which eventually will be the home to a pre-K through 5th grade elementary building on land that the Beatrice Public Schools owns. I know this is way early in the process and you're looking at it right now, but I get a question every once in a while about how would the public access that site? And I think there's maybe some concern, at least I sense there might be, that the traffic entrance will be going through the East Beatrice neighborhood there to the west and then into the site, but it really doesn't sound like that's where it's headed.
Yeah, I don't think that is the option that they're looking for at all. I think they're looking at the option where you have a wide open thoroughfare where access to the school is going to be maybe off of Lincoln Street to the site where the school is going to be located. I've not seen exactly where the school is going to land or what the footprint is. And there could be some adjustments to, 33rd Street, that the access could be off of 33rd Street. But I don't see that the neighborhood being utilized just because of you would have maybe a large concentration of traffic. There would be safety issues. I know that JEO, who is doing the Lincoln Street study, also did the study for District 15. So these may be questions that could or could not surface at that March 21st meeting. Again, we want to concentrate on Lincoln Street, but they may have just a little bit of or give a little bit of insight as to what that may look like.
Okay. We talked about it quite a bit last week, police search process interviews, but they are coming up here soon.
We received 15 applications. I think I said last week 17. I was incorrect. It was 15 applications. We invited 8 to the party, and 5 accepted. So those folks will be interviewed next Tuesday. The interviews will be by 3 different groups. Police chiefs that have been lined up to come down and visit with the individuals, community members, and then the Civil Service Commission. And they will then narrow them, that group down to 3, so 2 will be eliminated. 3 will come back for a second interview on March 29th, and then their selection will come to the City Council, I think maybe the second week or the second meeting in April.
I see. Okay. The council itself, is it doing their own interviews?
That is correct.
Okay, they are.
That is correct.
Right. Okay. But it's a multi-stage process.
It's a multi-stage process. We want to get the right individual. We want to get an individual who is certainly has all the right qualifications, individual that is community-minded. I think that is really important, who will engage with community members. Extremely important to have the police chief along with other department heads on board with the whole process of how we move our community forward.
Who are the chiefs from the other communities that are involved?
That's a great question.
Or the cities.
One is one from La Vista.
Okay.
And I think there is one from, I want to say Grand Island. There's 3. Somewhere around the state of Nebraska. How's that?
That's all right. Yeah. People in the know, people that have been in the business.
Well, have been in the business. All 3 of them are retired, so they know what it takes, what they go through, and they, I think, have a pretty good eye and format of what they go through, of how they do this.
Okay. The other vacancy that is out there that's going to have to be filled, you're an ex officio member of the Gage Area Growth Enterprise Board, Gage, and of course they're looking to fill a spot that's being vacated by Trevor Lee, who is moving on to Kearney, the Buffalo County area for Economic Development Group there. So you're looking for a new executive director. How is that coming so far?
We have an application. That applicant is going to be here on the 16th just to maybe have a meet and greet, and the Engage board being able to sit down, visit with that person, and try to figure out whether or not this is the person. We actually have a search out, and Trevor Lee is actually helping us too, to try to locate second and third candidate, just so that we can have a choice and narrow it down to one individual.
Okay. I have just a minute or two left. That's not on our list for discussion, but it just kind of crossed my mind now because they talked about it just briefly at the county board meeting yesterday. Last December's storm, that derecho that came through, that did a lot of damage, not only in Beatrice, but the surrounding area. I know there was a declaration, I believe, a damage declaration, if I remember right, federally approved or state approved. The damage you had in town, public facilities and things, is there reimbursement for that, or are you seeking on that, or what?
There will be.
Okay.
There will be some from federal funding. There also will be some that was prior to that will be paid for by insurance proceeds. So it's going to be a combination.
Yeah, I can't even remember if there was a figure ever published about how much there was public damage in the city. I don't know.
Yeah,
but,
Doug,
I'm sure emergency management probably has it in Gage County.
Sure,
so
but I
check
don't.
with that. Okay, all right. Okay, thanks very much, Stan, for being in. Stay warm. It'll be 70 next week. We'll get rid of all this
looking forward
snow.
to it.
Yeah.
And we get an extra hour of daylight.
Yeah, that'll be nice after work and get to
Right.
actually go outside and do something. Right. So, Mayor Stan Wirth on Ask the Mayor today.